We usually hear about business growth from founders, but rarely get a chance to hear from somebody who's involved in breaking down what happens to get that growth. My today's speaker is someone who has actually sat in a chair of group CFOs, board level operators amongst a lot of multinational companies, be it Tesco, Flipkart. I'm glad to welcome Karandeep Singh. Today's conversation is not about any advice or formula. It's actually about when money, structure, and ambition collide together. Straight away, jumping into the first question. If you're being really honest, how many MSMEs do you think are actually running a business and how many are just surviving day to day?
Well, it's interesting that you asked that question, and I think in context, there are 73 crores, 75 crores, MSMEs in India. But then there's micro, there's small, and then there's medium. And I probably focus my answer on the medium because that's the ones which are above 50 crores of revenue because that's where I would have got across in terms of experiences. I think it depends on the stage of the MSME. There are MSMEs which are probably into the 0 to 1 category, which is just trying to do their product market fit. They're trying to figure out the idea is going to work. It's a growth stage company, but
Yeah.
this is an early stage. It's not the 50 crores. It's much less than that. Then they're the ones which have actually done the PMF and they're looking to kind of grow and kind of replicate their success into different geographies, different categories, etc. And the third ones are basically so the probability of or whatever the question about who's surviving and who's being profitable varies at the stage the company is. And I think the people who are at the large stage, which is more than 10 crores of revenue, would be like 70% are running the business more judiciously. The ones which are in that early stage, which is still kind of proving, they are probably just not worried about what the cash is, but they're more worried about how do they get the concept proven kind of stage. So it varies at the stage of the company is. Um, but if a rule of thumb would be, it's very easy to say it's 50-50, because of the company. But I guess it varies from, the stage of the company.
Great. So, most of the times you notice that many, I would say most of MSME founders take a lot of pride that they handle everything around their business. Do you think it actually limits their growth?
Yes and no. I think if they are evolving with the growth of the company, then obviously it doesn't limit the growth of the company or the opportunity that they are going to harness. See, founders are builders, but they also have the vision. The problem that comes is when they get too skewed towards building and forget about the vision, and that's when they kind of become detrimental to the opportunity that they're looking at. I think they need to kind of evolve, and I've seen that in many of the startups that I support and advise, is if they've transitioned from, okay, this is something I'm going to let go, I'm going to focus on I'm going to create mind space to kind
Yeah.
of, for the next growth. My vision is this, I'm going to make it bigger. That's where they will not be detrimental to the growth of the company. Otherwise, they'll keep going back and, they have to move on. And I think that's, it's a cliched words, they have to let go. And that's very
Detach
common.
themselves.
Yeah. And most of the professionals who join these startups are looking at, are these founders willing to let go? And I think that's a conversation that most professionals would have with the founders. And I think most founders are now looking at, okay, I've gone through it, I've done it, I'm going to move on, but I know if I have to parachute and figure it out what went wrong, etc., I can do that. I think that's the best kind of a founder who
So
would be.
change your modes whenever
Change your
you.
mode, yeah, you shift your gears, but if you want to go back, you can go back because you've done it.
Yeah.
But you don't keep going back just for the purpose of going back because you got to point out what is not. You got to let the team do it.
Yeah, fair enough.
So I think founders are evolving. I would say what they were, and they would probably be more, I would say, overzealous. They're no longer.
Great. It's always believed that capital can actually solve a lot of problem in the MSME space, right? Do you think that it can actually reverse the story and make it into a weaker business?
We were talking about it before we started the podcast in terms
Yeah.
of the kind of business we're talking about, and I'll come with my experiences in the consumer tech businesses, which are very very B2C focused, where you have to drive a lot of marketing, where you have to spend a lot of money on the marketing side, and that burns, but then the capital is raised to kind of expand or exploit the market opportunity that's there in front of you. It doesn't kind of, and I think that's where the prudence comes, is you got to know where you're going to draw the line. Um, if we are careful about the capital allocation, which is a key word here, it doesn't weaken the business.
Okay.
If you are very prudent about the capital allocation, and capital allocation is not just in capex, but also in OpEx side of things. Whether you're looking at marketing dollars, which channel is going to get how much capital allocation for your budgets, and you're going to hold yourself accountable. It's very, very easy for people to say, okay, let's give a little more money because you're going to get more leads, etc. Bad idea. You got to be prudent about, okay, I'm going to allocate to the social, to the SCM, to my SEO side of things, or other kind of channels. Only so much amount of money, and I will focus on the lead that's going to generate, and mind the leads that you get currently before you kind of spend more money. So I think that prudence is very important. I don't think just it's probably hype that just because you have more capital, you can become beacon. But if you are disciplined and you have rhythm, it should actually make you more stronger.
So it's
company.
a way of spending in a disciplined manner.
Discipline, very important. The rhythm of the business, deploy, learn, do it again, and then before you kind of transition to the next level.
Great. Now let's jump in the other side of MSME, which is the family-run business, right? Which is actually a larger section of MSME. Do you think in an MSME, which is a family-run business, lack of identification of roles among family members does impact how it operates, how it grows?
Family obviously has the veto. That's typically what is, and that is well understood when the people go and join that company, that they would eventually have the veto. But I've seen many businesses which are still, and we know about them. I worked closely when I was running Tires and More, and see it was an investor. The family was not necessarily kind of intervening in the way they would want to do. They created a vision. They created an intent and left it to the professionals to run it. So I think the more than the role clarity is the empowerment that you do to the professionals that will decide whether this is going to move forward. Otherwise you'll delay things. You won't get the opportunities will be in front of you. They won't be exploited. You're potentially going to be not creating the shareholder value that you can create by hiring those professionals. So it's less about them hurting the business. I think more about empowering the business, which is going to make the difference.
Okay.
So I think that's what's important, and I think that goes back to that founder question that you asked. Are they willing to let go?
Yeah.
Similar idea on the family side. When you hire the professionals, you're going to let go and
Let go of the
empower
training.
them. Yeah.
Great. In an MSME business, most founders I meet, they always say that their CA thinks that they're profitable, which they also believe, right? But their books and balances never agree to that fact. Do you want to highlight what the gap is?
They should change the CA if he's telling them you're profitable but you don't have money in the bank. The focus has to be on the cash. I mean, as we all know, the cash is king. That's where profit is an opinion, cash is a fact. I think that the CA has to show the cash flows, not necessarily the profit. But I think the founders or the MSME owners need to be diligent about few things about the finance basics. How's the revenue getting recognized? Are they capitalizing expenses? Things which actually the CA will do to make the business look good, and he may be doing it for the right reasons. I mean, I'm not taking any putting any fault on that. But the founder needs to be aware that, okay, here are a few things I do from a reporting and a disclosure point of view, but then the reality is this is my cash profit. So as long as the CA and the founder and the MSME owner are well connected in understanding the numbers, and what kind of accounting principles are being used, I don't think that gap will exist. Having said that, it is recommended that the MSC founders looks at the balance sheet as well, not just the P&L. I've seen there's a lot of skew or natural intent के P&L देखना है, but the truth is in the balance sheet. If your money is stuck in the working capital, if you're giving a lot of deposits, if you're burning, doing few things which are sitting on the balance sheet, but actually should have been P&L or capex been capitalized as internal generated intangible software, you would know that what's the real state.
In your opinion, is there a stage where a financial mistake can become too expensive to actually undo, even if the business is still running?
In my experience, Saresh, it's typically the debt. If you over leverage your balance sheet, and it's a very, very attractive idea that
Lucrative.
let's raise debt to do this. And I think that's the only one that I am, I'll put a red flag, be careful about. When I'm talking about mistake, and this
Yeah.
is not like a fraud or something. This is like a genuine interest that you have right intention. I'll go and raise debt. But then the terms of the debt, because there is a gestation period on the product that you're building or on the project that you're doing. If the terms of how your cash flows are going to get generated from the new business, if they're going to mirror with the terms that you're raising the debt on, that's a good idea. But if you're going to start being out of pocket on the debt, and your new business is actually cash flows and M&A, a lot
Yeah.
of people raise debt to kind of raise the M&A,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then that's another. You got to be very, very conservative on your cash flows as far as your new acquisition is concerned if you're raising debt about that. So I think I'm going to just leave it at that, in terms of a mistake. And just if there is people listening to this, be careful about raising debt.
Great. Since you said people are listening, for our listeners basically and new age founders, what is the few tips you can actually spill your bins on where MSME face a larger challenge in financial structuring and how they can improve it?
So depends on the business, but I think again, I would say that the company goes through the journey of 0 to 1, 1 to 10, 10 to 100. And I think this is something that one of the founders in India have called out. We should not celebrate unicorns based on the valuation. We should celebrate when companies get to 100 crores. And I think that's where the founders should think about, what is the time when getting more financial muscle, from a support point of view, from a capability point of view, is going to be important. And I think that's where they need to be careful about, that the kind of people who are reporting, the kind of people who are being included in the business decisions.
Yeah.
I think 0 to 1, you probably need a very light touch support. As you get from 1 to 10, you need a little
You need
more,
no
so you
push.
kind of, yeah. But 10 to 100,
You
you
can't
need
go
to kind
wrong.
of, yeah, you have to start setting the stage, because you're going to be raising capital, they're going to be investors, you're going to be reporting, you're eventually going to look for an IPO. You need to put that financial muscle the moment you cross the 10 crore kind of a threshold, in my mind.
So that's where more focus needs to
Yeah,
be.
absolutely. Yeah.
I think capital is a golden goose word which most MSME look at, right? But there are certain areas and a certain founders interaction which I've had. They lack the understanding of the opportunity which comes with it.
Capital is where, which starves the MSME sector, because they need capital, growth capital, to grow. And they are sometimes not aware of the opportunities. And I'm going to just put one point of view in terms of the SME stock market at this point of time. There are about 900 companies which have got listed. There were more than 1,000 companies got listed, and now there are 900 on the stock market. So about 100 of them have graduated to the main board.
Yeah.
I think, and that and most MSME owners would like to go to the bank and say, okay, I want to raise money, and sometimes the bank terms are very, very prohibitive. So they should definitely think about an SME stock market as an idea to raise capital.
Okay.
It is expensive as a percentage of the capital that you raise relative to the main board, but it's not something that they should not look at. I think, and I think there's always, the jury's still out. I think there's a lot of noise about the quality of the asset that goes and listed. There's probably a 50-50. There are some people just listed for the sake of listing it.
Yeah.
But if this country, and I think the focus is on MSME, the government's putting a lot of focus, capital is going to be a big requirement, because you need capital to grow. And this is a capital which is actually not going to create a lot of pressure that you don't have to pledge your gold and your house, etc., because a lot of the owners have to do that. If they have to raise,
Exactly.
you could securitize that. You can actually raise capital if you have a good story, if you have good numbers, and
Foundation is strong.
and the investors are happy to look at it, and there are bankers who will facilitate that. And slowly I'm seeing that there is coverage, which is the analyst coverage, which is on the main board, is now also getting to some of the assets on that. So I think that's my parting note for this conversation from an MSME point of view.
Yeah.
That I think the MSME founders should definitely look at the SME stock market. Both BSE and SE run it. It's very efficient. I think there are fairly standards. It's kind of SEBI kind of regulates it. It's not super regulated like the main board. I think, and then when I used to be a kid, we used to take the long jump, and then there used to be a hop, step, and jump.
Yeah.
I think this is a hop, step, and jump idea that you land at the SME, and somebody was telling me that it's like playing the Ranji tournaments before you got to play the test match of the international cricket. So do the SME, you build the muscle of reporting, etc., and the discipline. And it's a 6 monthly report; it's not a quarterly reporting. And you got capital, and you can grow, and then you can graduate to the main board, and you can become a global player, etc. So that's my parting thought as far as MSMEs is concerned.
Great.
Do think about SME stock market.
Awesome. Kandi, thank you so much for giving that much of insight. I think it has been an amazing session to understand from your lens how you see MSME and how you see Indian MSME growing.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you for the time today.